Hey guys, Andy Brewster here again with the East Coast Evangelism Conference, wrapping up our brief discussion on standing firm in our faith. We talked about how Daniel has stood firm on purpose. He made up his mind that he was going to do the right thing. And then also how Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they stood firm in their faith in public. But we also, as Christians, we have to stand firm in our faith, even in private, even when we're by ourselves, when nobody else is around, when we don't think anybody else will know anything that happens. We've got to stand firm in our faith. We've got to be faithful to God, even when we're by ourselves. Turn over to Daniel chapter 6. In Daniel chapter 6, there's been this regime change from one king to another king. And it says in verse 5, notice what it says in verse 5. There's still a lot of people who don't like Daniel, and they don't like him because he's a Jew. They don't like him because he's better than they are. Notice what it says in verse 5. Then these men said, "We will not find any ground of accusation against this Daniel unless we find it against him with regard to the law of his God." They say, there's nothing wrong with Daniel, except for he worships this God that we don't really like, or we don't really know, or nobody else really worships that God, so he's kind of weird like that. But there's nothing wrong with him. Man, that could be said of us, that we live our lives in such a way that the only thing that people can look at us and say, well, that's a little different, is that we serve God. What an amazing thing that would be. We'd be good people, and people would look at us and admire us, and they'd question, why are we that way? And they would have to see, well, there's something different about the God that this person serves. So these people who don't like Daniel, they come up with this law. They go to the king and they say, "Oh, king, live forever." They butter him up, sugar him up a little bit first, and they came up with this law, and they say, "King, let's say nobody can pray to anybody except for you for 30 whole days. That sound good, king?" And the king says, "Yeah, that sounds pretty good." He thinks he's the man. He's a little arrogant. So notice what it says in verse 10. Now when Daniel knew that the document was signed, he knew this law was going to happen, because not only was it don't pray to anybody for 30 days, but if you do, you get thrown into the lion's den. So when he knew the law was signed, he entered his house. And now in his roof chamber, he had windows open towards Jerusalem, and he continued kneeling on his knees 3 times a day, praying and giving thanks before his God, as he had been doing previously. Daniel kept on doing what he was supposed to be doing in private. Even when nobody else could have known. When he closed that door, he could have just sat there and done nothing. When he closed that door, he could have, he could have done nothing at all, and nobody would have known. Maybe even his family or his friends would have think, yeah, Daniel's in there praying, that's what he does. But in reality, he wouldn't have been. But these men, they catch him in the very act of praying to God, which at this point in the law of the kingdom is against the law. So they catch him in the act, and he's thrown into the lion's den. Even though the king wants to save him because the king likes Daniel, he's thrown into the lion's den, and the king goes and he fasts and he maybe prays the whole evening. And notice what happens in verses 25 through 27. After the king goes and rushes to the lion's den, and Daniel is found safe, and God has cared for him, notice what King Darius does. Then Darius the king wrote to all the peoples, nations, and men of every language who were living in all the land, "May your peace abound. I make a decree that in the dominion of my kingdom men are to fear and tremble before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and enduring forever. And his kingdom is the one which will not be destroyed. And his dominion will be forever. He delivers and rescues and performs signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. Who has also delivered Daniel from the power of the lions." So here this king who thought he was the man and nobody should pray to anybody except for him, he says, no. Daniel's God is God, and nobody needs to say anything bad about him. When I stand firm on purpose, when I stand firm in public, and even when I stand firm and for my faith in private, people will take notice. And if I don't do these things, my evangelistic efforts to strive to reach the lost and bring them to Jesus will be hurt. I've got to make up my mind to stand firm in my faith in public and in private. Guys, let's go out there and let's do this today. Let's stand firm so that when we go and talk to people about Jesus, they'll be willing to listen to us because they know the kind of people that we are. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you later.